Welcome to SUPRS Live. This is the Super Modified Ultimate Pavement Racing Series, and we are live from the Desert Jewel, Phoenix International Raceway for SUPRS Copper World Classic 19, presented by Kern Motorsports with the JP Memorial Classic. We are excited to be bringing this event to you here tonight. This is a big one for us as it emulates the real Copper World Classic that was run in Phoenix for so many years. It's a very important race to all super modified races, kind of like their Indianapolis 500. And in fact, the super modified's faster than Indy cars on the straightaways at Phoenix, approached 200 miles an hour at the end of the front stretch and through the dog leg. It was something to see. It was nerve-wracking. It was exciting. It was everything that racing should be, all wrapped up into one. Just an amazing connection, and really what gave rise to the East-West shootouts for the real super modified, starting in 1992 at Sandusky Speedway and Jennerstown Speedway, and then moving on to Indianapolis Raceway Park, where we were last week in 1995, the East-West shootout, and then, of course, the one that most people remember nowadays, the 2007 East-West shootout at Concord Motor Speedway down in North Carolina. But tonight we're talking about the West Coast. We are full song for our West Coast swing to finish out the season for our 19th consecutive year of sanctioning super modified sim racing here, and we're glad you could join us. You want to make sure you let us know where you're tuned in from, whether you're watching on our Twitch page or on supers.net. Let us know where you're tuned in from so we can give you a super shout out during the broadcast. We'd love to know what you think about the super modifieds on the mile at Phoenix International Raceway. Not racing there anymore, put an end to it. But tonight's sponsors, very well versed with super modified racing on the West Coast. Kern Motorsports, Kurt Kern, former flagman and race control director at Phoenix International Raceway when the super modifieds raced there, founding member of the NSRA along with the WSMRA. And the guy that we've got in the broadcast now, real familiar with real super modifieds as well as super modified sim racing, got his start with supers back in 2005. Hasn't raced with us for quite some time, but he's jumped in with both feet into the real super modified division, and that's Mark Pasquale. Mark is the guy behind the JP Memorial Classic as part of the West Coast Super Modified Races reunion at Meridian Speedway. Welcome to the broadcast, Mark. Good to hear from you again.
Hey, Bobby G, good to hear from you. Thanks for having me.
Man, we're excited about the things that are going on out there at Meridian Speedway. You know, talking to Kurt down through the years, we know how stressful it was for him to be at Phoenix on the big mile. You got your growing up and your love of super modifieds from San Jose Speedway and West Capitol and Roseville and all those great tracks out there at Clovis and on it goes. And you kind of, as life does, you get busy with life. You don't get to hang out around the super modified tracks, but you've come back full song after Kurt decided he wanted to have a party for all the old guys, the old crew, and you said, you know what, let's get this thing going. Let's do something out here, and it's gotten to be really exciting. It's really grown, and you're a big part of it. Tell us how you got involved with Kurt. And how you got that race going out there at Meridian Speedway.
Yeah, well, you mentioned a couple things. We used to go to Phoenix. My dad and I used to go to Phoenix, watch Copper World every year. My dad got me into the love of racing. His super modifieds were his first love, and his true love, open wheel racing. Met Kurt Kern. He was running NSRA. Then it was the Western States Super Modified Tour. We followed them up to Shasta. We went down, saw them at what was Mesa Marin Speedway. We watched them all over the place and got to know Kurt over the years. Moved to the East Coast, right? Saw you at Oswego Speedway when we were living in Pennsylvania and got to see the Classic a couple of years. And then we moved back. And when we moved back, my dad's health started to fail. We got him to one or two more races before we lost him, and kept in touch with Kurt and said, hey, I just can't stand to see the super modifieds die out. At the time, there was a race called the Copper Cup in Utah. And I thought if we could emulate the Copper Cup at another track, you'd have two big money races that might motivate the guys to come back out. Well, unfortunately, the Copper Cup went by the wayside, but I was able to talk to Kurt, and he hooked me up with Adam Nelson up at Meridian, and we combined the Super Modified reunion that's on Diamond Cup weekend. It used to be a Super Modified show, and it's now a sprint car show. But the last few years, we've added the JP Memorial, which is my dad's name was Joe, so it's in his name, and it's $5,000 to win and $1,200 to start. And the last couple of years, we were trying to get to this magic goal of 20 cars, and it was COVID 2 years in a row, and then it was the gas prices. But we're starting to see the car count come up. Adam added a second super modified race last year as part of the Pink Lady Classic. Now that Meridian Speedway has purchased Twin Falls, Magic Valley Twin Falls, we have two shows this year, two 2-day shows, the JP Classic as part of Diamond Cup weekend, and then the Pat Russell Memorial, which is going to be a Friday night show at Meridian and a Saturday show at Twin Falls, and then we're going to finish our season at Madera Speedway as part of the Harvest Classic on September 29th and 30th. So what started as a one-race deal is now a 3-race deal, all 2-day shows, and we're trying to grow it next year with a race in Colorado, maybe one in Washington, and another one up in Northern California, as we try to slowly but steady build the Super Modified series back up on the West Coast.
Mark, I think that's fantastic. I think one of the most exciting things is we look through your Facebook page, some pretty good stuff there, looking at some of the, Harold Evans' old car, of course, the Rocket Man, Rick Veenstra, and Brian Wharf, who's just dominated the Diamond Cup of late. But what I think is so cool about what you do with the Speed Tour, along with Adam Nelson, is, man, you can't afford to turn cars away. The division is struggling across the country, and we see it everywhere with car count. But what I see happening with you guys is you're not turning cars away. You're not saying don't come and race because you've got a big block or a small block or aluminum or cast iron block, or you've got a car that's more than 18-inch offset. You're saying, look, as long as you got a good seat, your safety equipment's up to date, get your backside trackside and go racing with us. I love that you're doing that. And I think that's one of the most attractive things that you've got going right now. You're not turning people away. You're saying come and race.
Yeah, anybody can run. As long as you're a super modified. Sprint cars have their own field. I love sprint cars, but there's a place for sprint cars and there's a place for supers. But it's the old days of run what you brung. As long as you meet safety standards and the tire rule, which basically is you qualify on the same tires you race, that's about it. Other than that, big block, small block, big wing, small wing, you bring what you think is going to be best of the track, and we'll let you run. And everybody seems to be happy with that.
One of the neat things, Marshall Sargent's son, building some of the old replicas of the hard tops. And Kyle Vanderpool's been racing that thing with you guys at Meridian Speedway and not doing too shabby. It's kind of cool to see, instead of just racing with the Legends of Kearney Bowl, they're bringing that thing out and racing against some radical offsets. And the really top dog cars that are newer, the Hyders and the KPCs and stuff like that out west, those guys are competitive with that old hard top thing.
Yeah, that's right. The Purple Monster, they call it.
Well, it's exciting to see that, and it's a great mix, just a fantastic mix. And for those of you East Coast fans that don't know much about what's going on in the world of the West Coast, so we show some of the pictures from the Old Super Guys Facebook page, which is kind of the organizational standpoint for the reunion, the West Coast Supermod reunion, started by Kurt Kern, and I was just looking for a place to do it, have a party, and a race broke out. But the two-seat Super Modified, this is Oswego Speedway. That started with the SRL on the West Coast, and Ed Hyder built that thing, and now it's back east. So maybe you can talk Davey into talking the Teresis to bringing it back out there for one of your shows. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, well, Davey actually has one of the Triguero brothers' orange #1 cars, and he brought it out to the Pink Lady Classic last year. He brought it out to to a race in Vegas, which is run by Flying Brian Schaefer. And the plan is for them to run the Speed Tour events this year. So Davey's got the Triguero brothers car back out there.
That's going to be
You,
fantastic.
you,
Exciting that you can go to Madeira and run the Harvest Classic. Short of the Vuki race, that's probably, in some people's minds, is probably actually more popular than the Vuki. For guys like you and me, obviously the Vuki is the most important thing going on at Madeira, but it's neat. And I hope that makes it on the MAV TV broadcast at some point or another. I know Kenny Shepard doing a lot of that. So I wish you guys the best. You're doing fantastic things out there. And it's good to see an old Supers member getting deeply involved with the division and really, hey, let's face it, putting your money where your mouth is and doing everything you can to build it back up, Mark. Now we just got to get you back online and get you back behind the wheel of a virtual super modified.
yeah, that'd be fun. I miss those days. Life got in the way. Kids got priorities, workout priorities. Plus, the West Coast, it's hard to get home in time to make your green flag starts.
Yeah, we know that it makes it tough. We've had few of the guys out there for sure, including Kyle Vanderpool, who raced with us back in the day. But Mark, you're always welcome to come in, hang out, and tell the folks again how they can find out more about the Speed Tour Supermodifieds and the West Coast Supermodified Racers reunion at Meridian Speedway.
Yeah, probably the best way is to get on Facebook, go to the Supermodified reunion page, also known as the Speed Tour page, or look up Meridian Speedway's Facebook page. That's the best way to do it, and all the information is there. We will be on Flow TV for the Diamond Cup. We're going to be on MAV TV for the Madeira Harvest Classic. So opportunities to see these cars in action on a couple of very different tracks. Kind of a tight quarter mile up at Meridian, and a more of a bank track at Twin Falls, and a little bit longer, as well as Madeira, third mile bank track, fastest in the West at one time.
Oh, it's still in our heart. It still is for sure. It's a great facility there at the fairgrounds at Madeira. And looking down through, it'll be great to see if you guys can get into CNS or I-25 in Pueblo and help the ERA guys out too. So I know they've been supporting you at Meridian. Great, just a great place to be. The Diamond Cup, the Tater Cup. There's some fantastic racing out there in Idaho, and a lot of people don't remember how important Idaho and the Northwest was in super modified racing. Camera sending more drivers to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway out of super modifieds than any other sanctioned track in the country. So it's important that we keep that alive, and you're doing it, Mark. Thank you so much for coming on the broadcast tonight, and we wish you the best of luck, and stay in touch, man. We're glad to have you back around.
All right, thank you, brother. Good talking to you.
Mark Pasquale, ladies and gentlemen, from the Speed Tour Supermodifieds, part of the JP Memorial Classic at Meridian Speedway on Diamond Cup weekend. One of our sponsors here tonight for the SUPRS Copper World Classic